We are back with another episode of Redefining Success. And so today we are going to be talking about our health, our health and well being, and what that means for us as entrepreneurs, to be in this place of holistic wellness. Really, the importance of that is to help us set that foundation to create that balance between our physical, our mental, our spiritual, and our emotional health and well being. Because we know as entrepreneurs, yikes, it's a roller coaster, right? There are days that we're on our highs and things are awesome. And then just as quickly as that could come, we can have moments where we're just, whew, what happened, right? So there's just these seasons that we go through. But if we don't have that insight or that foundation to help us really lay the groundwork down, we can feel like we're on shaky ground. And sometimes that could be that make or break us in our business. And whether we continue pursuing those dreams or whether we have a team, how are we showing up? How are we showing up for our clients? How are we showing up for our customers? Right. So a foundation is really just that, to help us build something solid up front. And I think for us as entrepreneurs or just women in business in general, we tend to put ourselves last. That's just the reality of it, right? We put ourselves last in that priority list. But when it comes to self-care and health and wellness and the well-being, we have to prevent and protect ourselves. So Amy, I'd love for you to kind of share a little bit of what that foundation looks like in business.
Yeah. So you described it perfectly. The roller coaster reality of entrepreneurship. But at the end of the day, it really does boil down to how are we showing up for ourselves? Because if we're not showing up for ourselves, how can we best serve others? This just struck me yesterday. So I was working out, and for a while, I had gotten off track. I hadn't been in my routine. And over the past month, I've really been taking the time to make space, be really intentional about, okay, if my goal is this, then I need to that. So if my goal is to be able to energetically show up, to pour into others, I need to make sure that I'm prioritizing myself first. And it feels very counterintuitive, especially to us as women, because we are nurturers, because we are putting everyone else before ourselves. But it is that cliche saying, and I know you've heard it, that you can't pour from an empty cup, but it's true. Spiritually, mentally, physically, if you don't have the energy to show up, you can't best serve others. So something like exercise, it feels counterintuitive because I don't have the energy, so I'm not going to do it. So I push it to the back burner. I don't have the time. I'm so busy being busy that I forget to prioritize my faith and my spirit. So I'm going to push it to the back burner.
Mhm.
Everything else has been pushed aside that we forget about what's truly important to us. If we say that our goal is to deepen our relationship with God, then are we prioritizing it? And this is something that I noticed too. I got away from. I found myself picking my phone up first thing in the morning. It's like, okay, if I want to have this deepened faith, if I want to have this relationship with God, I need to do that first and foremost before I pick up that phone. Before I pour into everyone else, before I look at the world's problems, everything happening around me, before I get the kids out of bed and ready for school, I need to have that time in that space for myself because that allows me then to pour into everyone else. And our health, our well being, it's an asset. It is such a powerful asset that we forget about until something big happens in life. You don't realize how fragile life is until you learn of the passing of a friend, until you hear about a tragedy on the news, about when you get a diagnosis from the doctor's office, when a test result comes back abnormal. Suddenly now it wakes us back up to that and the importance of it. So it's really essential at the end of the day to make the time for ourselves so that we can best serve others. Now, Rachel, I know this is your jam. Like, you are all things health, wellness. I see you working out all the time. Tell me about your journey. Tell me about how you've been able to really make this a priority and the trickle down effect into your business then.
Yes, you hit the nail on the head when, it's about taking care of ourselves first. And, for me, I think because I took the backwards approach and, I think a lot of life experiences teaches you to correct course in ways that is best conducive for you and the betterment of where you're headed. For me, I'm always, from that external to the internal, from the outside looking in. And I had to flip that script and that narrative. And so I always say to myself now, if you're not at your best, you cannot serve the rest. And we're in a place of service. So how can I be in a place of service if I'm not taking care of myself from the inside out? And it goes beyond our external, goes beyond our physical. And, for me, I've really adopted the philosophy of what you call fit from within. And it builds on the foundation again. So if we look at our pillars, we have our mental, our emotional, our spiritual, and then our physical health and well-being. But our physical, to me, I wouldn't say I put it last, but I don't put that as first because I'm not focused on that external. But our physical becomes a byproduct of that inner fitness. And so what that looks like for me is each and every morning, just like what you had talked about, we typically grab our phones, one, because our alarm is set on there, but two, we grab it and immediately we're rushed into like work mode because we turn on our emails, we get, messages, we got this. And if we don't carve out the first, it depends on who that individual is and their schedule, but let's just say the first 15 minutes of each day and devote that time to giving thanks for the breath in your lungs and the beat of your heart, giving gratitude for another day. And that has been something that has been a complete game changer for me is that I don't give the first moments of my day to the world. I don't give it to my family or my customers or any of those. I give it to God because God gave me this day. And so giving back is such a huge priority in my life, but it also sets a tone so that I'm not rushed. I can ease into the day. And when I take that time to give thanks, I usually start the day then. I'll get up out of bed, do my prayer, do a devotional, or just journal. And this is time that really fills my soul. It fills my heart to know that I'm I'm already expectant of the day. And those are such foundational pieces for me because mentally I'm clear, emotionally I'm grounded, spiritually I'm filled. And then I'll go to the gym. Then I'll go work out. And while I'm there, I'm able to also connect with other people and have conversations that don't feel like they're rushed, to have a purpose while I'm there too. Because, you're, even if you're at a place, let's just say the gym, there's people there of service, right? Are we not in there for interaction, for connection, for community? And no matter where we go, whether you're dropping the kids off at school, right? You want to be there to interact with the other parents and not just feel so rushed because you've had that first bit of the day stolen from you, right? So it's about setting those boundaries, protecting our greatest asset, which is our self and our sound mind and our heart. And then, physically moving. So for those four pillars, we have to check in with ourselves. What are we doing to fill our mind, right? What are we doing emotionally? What are we doing for that spiritual component, that soul's connection? And then how are we moving and honoring and serving our body as when we look into life or even in business for this, we're consumers. We're consumers of this world from what we watch to what we listen to what we read, to what we eat, to what we digest in our body, right? Because I always say what's inside of us will eventually come out of us. And if we don't have from a place of love and gratitude and compassion and understanding and the fruits that are within us, that's what we will produce out there into our space, into our work, and into the communities and our customers and our clients. So we have to look at what are the results we want to produce, but what are the fruits that we're sowing right now? What are the
Mm.
seeds planting? So those are the four pillars for me, which have been a complete game changer in my life over these past, 10ish years, because I was that person who just gave in my phone and I jump on social
Same.
media and emails and I wonder,
Yeah.
why was my day so hectic? Why is everything such a rush?
And then
Why
by
is
the end of the
like,
day, you're like, what
why?
just happened? And I'm so exhausted. And it
Yes.
feels so counterintuitive. But I love what you're saying too about the being rushed, being stuck in the hurry. But at the end of the day, we forget that we have the choice. And this was something, again, this week on Monday. I remember Mondays used to be just like a marathon. I would get up for work. I would, have to get myself ready, get the kids ready. My husband would be at work by 7 a.m. I was making sure that everybody's lunches were packed, all of these things that by the time I started my workday at 7:30, like this was when I was working in a 9 to 5, I was exhausted. And the day had just started, but it was like you said, it was starting in that hurry. Now I love Monday mornings. Monday mornings, I block out the morning so I can just focus on my business. And one of my favorite things to do is just get quiet, just spend time outside with my coffee, listening to the bird like I'm 82 years old. But it's because I realized I had the choice to prioritize what's important to me. And hurry, it's a choice. It's a choice that we get to make. You get to choose. But something else you said too was, we got to take the time to check in with ourselves. We have to take the time to really get honest with ourselves about what's not working right now. Because if something's not working, that's okay. Don't judge yourself for it. Celebrate it because now you have the awareness and you can use that awareness to create a change. That awareness is the catalyst for change. What are we hurrying for? We're hurrying through life to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. We don't know where that finish line is. Do
Right.
you want to look back at your life and just remember yourself being hurried all of the time? Or do you want to look back and be like, you know what? I lived a darn good life. I embraced it. And yeah, that's for me just so true.
Yeah, and you bring up such a great point, and I'm pulling up the scripture here is it's First Corinthians 9:27. I discipline my body like an athlete, training it to do what it should. Otherwise, if you're that after preaching to others, I myself might be disqualified. So we can look at that because when we look at the sound body, the sound mind, and a pure heart and our intentions, if we're not living out that, we're disqualifying ourselves from what we're trying to teach others to do. So we need to lead by example. And you bring up another one too about we all run for this race, right? But only one of us gets the prize. And the prize is life, right? That we can sustain this, that we feel like we have vitality, that we are overcoming so much in life where it doesn't feel like that rush because we're running it at our own pace. And that one is First Corinthians 9:24. Don't you realize that in a race, everyone runs, but only one gets the prize? So run to win. What does winning mean to you? What is what is physical health and well-being? What does that mental strength and fortitude? What does it feel like to have that sound mind and heart from a soul and an emotional component, right? So protect that greatest asset. That's you. And I think that when we think of business, we think, oh, it's our finances, it's our team, it's our customers. No, it's not. You are at the helm of your business. You are at the helm of everything. You are the one constant in this entire life. We need to protect us. And so that is why fitness has always been this first and foremost, because it's not just, fitness in a box, which we tend to think into this
Yeah.
world. Fitness, running my own race, the way that I have now shifted my perspective of what I see and believe of what is health and well-being and a holistic approach from the inside out.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't have said it any more succinctly, any better. I mean, it is true. And we know this, but we need to take the time to really reflect on it because it's going to be individualized. It looks different for everyone, and it shouldn't be this box that we're all trying to fit ourselves into. No, it's looking at your context of life, what season of life that you're in, what support you have around you, and figuring out what feels best for you. Because once you have figured that out, you prioritize it. We prioritize what's important to ourselves. So I think that's really important. And then next week, we are diving into another topic that is super important and not talked about enough. And that is vulnerability as
Mhm.
a strength. I would love for you to give us a little bite sized nugget overview, Rachel.
Yes. Oh my gosh, vulnerability. If you can't tell, I get excited about every single
I know
because
you do. I
be
love it.
because it's just, we're trying to think bigger picture, right? We're not just giving you just these micro steps, and when we get there, we're like, "Oh, then you're gonna need this. Oh, and then you're gonna need this." Right. It's about becoming your best and most confident self from the inside out. And so when we can really embrace our vulnerability, that becomes our strength, not a weakness. And I think that sometimes we look at vulnerability as like, "Ooh, yeah, that's broken or something's not right." But we need to rethink what vulnerability is in our personal professional space, right? Because the context of that is really the source of strength and it becomes the catalyst for connection and growth. And we've been talking about what it's like to build sustainable community, to what it's like for that personal growth so that we can develop professionally, so that we can grow as individuals and collectively as a team and contribute to this world and make a difference and an impact. But being vulnerable is allowing your heart to be seen. But again, if we're being in a place where the world is taking from us first and we don't have that insight, we don't know what our heart wants. We don't know what we're called for. We don't know, right? And that vulnerability is really just letting our guard down so that we can be seen for who we are and be accepted into this world that we're creating something better. So we're going to dive deeper into that conversation next week. But, when we look at vulnerability, keep that in mind. That's going to be one of your greatest assets aside from your own self preservation. So we look forward to next week and we got a lot on deck. So thank you for joining us.